Yeah, I saw the video that was shared in the room at the meetings about the hip drop tackle, and the data was compelling on the number of injuries that come from it and all for making the game safer. But I got to say, I watch a lot of football, and a lot of those tackles, I couldn't tell what it was. What is your opinion of outlawing the hip drop tackle and how difficult this will be, if at all, to officiate?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm pretty much for everything player safety. And this was very reminiscent to me back to the Roy Williams horse collar tackle when we watched various leg injuries at a competition committee meeting. Happy to say it was in Hawaii that year. But
Tough gig.
The injuries that it created, it's the same type of action that you're getting here with the hip drop tackle. The difference to me is the Roy Williams thing, we said right off the bat, he could have done this differently. He didn't have to grab the inside of the collar and pull down and swing his legs behind like that. To me, this is a little bit more difficult to try to tell a player what to do who maybe is coming from the side, and the natural body movement, might create that fall into the back of the leg. So I think this is more difficult on a defensive player trying to figure out how to make a tackle. Yet, in this day of player safety, I would have a hard time disagreeing with the actual change itself. I think the problem for me is it's kind of like illegal use of the helmet. It's so hard to figure on the field as an official in real time whether or not it's a foul. And while I applaud the league for making replay reviewable of roughing the passer calls this year, making it reviewable to the intentional grounding calls, whether you're in and out of the pocket, I don't know why they didn't go and include this. And so if it's thrown on the field and you can see, if you're trained and you're in the replay center and you can see it's not a hip drop, then to me, I think they should have been able to review it and take it off if in fact it was incorrectly called. But we know in this day and age of player safety that that's the big focus of the league, regardless of whether the Players Association like the rule change or not. Player safety is going to win out with the owners.
Mike, there's some happenstance with leading with the helmet if a runner happens to drop their body position at just the right time. Is there happenstance with the hip drop in terms of the defender just thinking all I got to do is get there, grab the person, and then use my body weight to fall? Or do the refs, does the competition committee think that this is always intentional? Here I go with my hip drop tackle right now.
I don't think they thought it was intentional. I mean, I can't get inside Rich McKay's head, but I think it's just a tactic that they felt was dangerous. And I mean, when you're trying to bring down a runner, I mean, this is not easy. Now, it was already taking the head out of the game pretty much. And so now you're saying lower body, that now becomes an issue and making the tackle too. So I do think it's going to be more difficult. And a lot of the face masks aren't intentional. I mean, you're sometimes warding off a block and you reach out and you grab the face mask. You're not trying to hurt anybody, but you're just trying to make a play. And the hip drop, to me, more is trying to make a play than the horse collar, or even like the face mask. But it is there was enough, as you said, there was substantial injury data, which really drives these changes like this. And so I'm not surprised, and players will figure it out. And I think it'll be something that results more in fines than it does with fouls, which I think is. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That was what my next question was going to be, because I thought Roger Goodell said something that really interesting. He said, when we had the lowering of the head penalty added, there was a transition period. We're going to make sure that the officials are comfortable that when they see something clear and obvious, they throw the flag. And in a question to, like, what about if they miss the call during the games? He said, otherwise we'll see it on videotape. We'll see it on tape Monday and deal with it in fines and discipline. So I'm wondering, like, Is that in the back of a ref's mind? Like, do we think that we actually are not going to watch this happen on Sundays and then players are just going to have their wallet impacted on Tuesdays?
I think there's a chance of that. I'm just trying to grab a quick look to see how many of the illegal helmet calls were made this year. But I would say that fines to calls on the field are like 5-1 fines. You know, it's the nature of the beast. You know, nobody really, the committee, well, they try to take into consideration how difficult it is to officiate some of these rule changes. And this would be one. You know, there aren't players on the competition committee. There aren't officials on the competition committee. Yes, the head of officiating is a non-voting member, but you know, they don't take into regard how difficult something to officiate is. And so I really do think, and I haven't heard Walt Anderson's instructions to the officials yet, and he's not really given them yet, but I think he's going to say, don't throw unless you are absolutely sure where you see that action, maybe where the runner gets dragged all the way to the ground as opposed to just the legs buckling. So I think, you know, it's going to remain to be seen. Roger's probably right. Players are adjusted. I mean, I remember the Eugene Robinson play the first year. It came when came into the lowering of the helmet, and I publicly said, this is a bad rule, a bad rule. I was already gone from the office by then, so I could say that. But I didn't know Roger Goodell was listening to what I said because he called and ripped me a new one. But players did adjust to a degree. But in bang situation, my gosh, if you're a corner trying to take down a fullback or something, and you know, pretty damn hard to get him to the ground. And I just think there's going to be situations where we all say, what else could he do?
Right.
That's always the thing. What else can he do? Well, you got to figure out something. Just let him run, I guess. I don't know. Player safety has certainly changed the game, including, you know, what we're seeing now in terms of kickoffs.
Players' safety and a desire for offense. If you need anybody to call Roger Goodell and rip him a new one on your behalf, we got your back. All right, Mike?
I've got the number if you want to call.
Yeah,
we do.
We'll get it after the segment. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
I was just going to give it out now.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's fine.
Yeah, sure.
That's fine. Didn't know how far we were into the Tito's. That's why I wasn't sure. Mike, you mentioned the kickoff. Have they found a sweet spot here where the new kickoff rule will make it more impactful and we'll see a ton more kickoffs, but it does take player safety into account? What do you think about the balance they're trying to strike here with this new rule?
I don't like the rule. I just don't like the rule. I really didn't like what the XFL did. Look, I think what's going to happen to me is, what's the return? What's the drive start going to be? That's the key. Now, we know that a touchback brought the ball out to the 25-yard line. Now you've got all these things where you kick the ball short, and if they catch it, they can't fair catch it anymore and get the ball to 25. But what now is this with players not being able to move until the ball touches the ground, or a player? What's the drive start going to be? Is it going to move to the 27, 28, something like that? Therefore, kind of saying, okay, we all know how strong the kickers are. If they kick the ball into the end zone and it bounces in the end zone, I mean, then that ball goes out to the 30. So are we going to get to the point where the kickers just say, or the team say, hey, let's just kick it into the end zone, and guess what? Instead of starting at the 25, we're starting at the 30. So what's the risk reward going to be here? And I think that's what everybody's going to have to look at, is what kind of returns are you getting in this? Are we going to have more returns? Most likely, at least starting out. But if it gets to be something where these kickers can boom them out of the end zone almost every time, are they going to do it and give the ball to the receivers at the 30? It's an unknown, and that's why it's a one-year rule. Just going to have to see how it all works out. I like kickoff returns. I'd rather see a more traditional kickoff return. The Spring League is not going to this. The Spring League is going to kick off from the 20, but we've moved the players closer together, but all the action starts when the ball is kicked. So we had 91% of our kickoffs returned last year, and our injury numbers were not high at all. Now, I mean, the speed of the players in the Spring League, not as fast. The physicality of not as physical. but still the numbers of returns versus the number of injuries was good. So I think they'll keep dabbling in this, but it's so interesting that they wanted to get the kickoff out of the game, and they succeeded when you think that only 21% of kickoffs were returned last year. So they got it out of the game, and now they're bringing it back. And it'll probably take a couple of years till they tweak it and figure out what really works best.